Warflight really came about through a whole ton of conversations I had with my wife Jo. She'd written an article for a magazine. I think it may have been called Into the Warflight, but it was an idea by Homer, and maybe it might even date back even earlier than that. But he talks about Odysseus waking up in the Warflight, the hour before the dawn, and we were using it as a kind of symbol of a look at the tribes that made up Europe. This kind of prehistory that talks about the same people who took on the Chinese, the people for whom the Wall of China was built in order to keep them out, and the people who eventually brought down the Roman Empire. So, that lyrically was what we were driven by. And then underneath all of that, we were thinking about the idea of freedom and slavery and personal freedom and all of those issues. So it was a kind of complex idea. I realized for years I've been trying to make an album that other people were to eventually describe as cinematic. I didn't realize it was going to sound that cinematic. I wanted to do an album that not only had the best of rock, but also had lots of this kind of elemental quality that I associate with Eastern European composers, the Russians, Scandinavian with Grieg, the sort of Slavic elements. And I wanted to at least with the title track, try and use some of those harmonies and try and use or access some of that magical quality that I think they managed to produce. In other words, not the area where orchestras necessarily sound romantic, but where they sound magical and mystical and elemental and dark and thick and mysterious. The sound of it is very interesting. So we recorded that in Hungary, where I also recorded a guy from Azerbaijan playing the tar. His name is Malik Mansurov. And when I was first introduced to him, Attila Ögerhazy, who runs Grammy Records and is really the leader of Jarbi, the Hungarian fusion band, he said, this guy is he's the world's foremost player of this instrument called the tar, which is related to the guitar and the sitar, and the root of the word means gut. So this lovely string instrument. And straight away, as this guy sat down and started playing this thing, I thought, oh, absolutely magical. And I was captivated by these little trills and embellishments that he does. And he plays delightfully fast, but it's kind of as if there's little sort of silver little fairy notes that seem to sort of fly away from his fingers, and it just seemed to conjure those images for me. As I've got to work with this guy. It's a little bit like discovering someone who sounds like a cross between Ravi Shankar and John McLaughlin. He's brilliantly fast. So you've got Birds of Fire fast, but you've got this mystical quality with these harmonic minor and Eastern scales.